Hello everybody, my name is Zen, and I've got a bunch of Diablo Immortal information for you directly from Blizzard before the launch of the game. So this is a bunch of stuff that you're either going to want to know or need to know before we go into launch. But before we get started with any of that information, I've been told to warn you guys that on the second when the game launches, to make sure to link your battle.net account with whatever mobile account you're using, whether it be Android or iOS or both. Because if you go to play on one of those and you switch to another, so like let's say you jump on your iPhone and you're playing the game, you're like, this is cool, I'm gonna play on PC now, which you could totally do, which is awesome with full crossplay. And you go over to your computer and you download Battle.net and you start playing on there, but you haven't linked your accounts, you'll notice that your stuff is separate. But when you link them, it'll be combined. You want to make sure that you link them first, because if you're playing those two things separately and then you want to link them later, you're going to lose one or the other. So just link them right away. And that goes for as well if you're playing between an Android device and an iOS device. It'll just make things way better for the cross play and the cross progression. But with that out of the way, let's dive into our speed run of all of this information. And we're going to start where you will start on the second, which is at character creation. So they have shown off that you are going to have a full-on, very in-depth character creator, which is awesome. It's something that you expect from MMOs nowadays, and Diablo Immortal is definitely an MMO in many senses. So for this, you can create your character like you might, in Skyrim or something, where you're going to be able to change the facial structure and the hair and the eyes and everything. Super cool. Anywhere that you see your 3D model in the game, you'll see your character that you customized. Now, a bit of information here. You will not be able to change the look of that character at launch. So once you create it, it's going to look like that. You're going to have the same face and everything, but this seems to be a planned feature later on down the line where you're able to change it around. Also, little thing, this is just, it's strange, but this is just kind of how it works. They have a class change feature. So if you're not liking your monk at launch and you want to switch to like a crusader, you can absolutely do that. But when you do so, and you've not done it yet, and like, let's say you're switching to a crusader for the first time, you're going to have to kind of reconfigure your face as a crusader, and you'll set up how you want your new character to look, even though it's technically the same character. It's just a different class now. But the weird thing with that is when you go to switch back to your monk, it's going to just default back to the way that you had it before. You're not going to be able to use this as a way to change the look of your character in a roundabout way. And then once you get in the game and you start playing, you start seeing other people. Maybe you start seeing your friends pop online and you want to join them and get into clans and groups and everything. Let's start talking about the social structures of Diablo Immortal, and I'll get more in depth on this kind of stuff when we lead into the launch of the game. But right now you need to know that clan sizes are limited to 100 people, which is totally fine. I think unless you're joining like a big open clan or like a content creators clan, then you're not really going to run into these issues. Most social groups aren't going to reach a clan of 100 people, but it is definitely a possibility that you do just join like a big popular clan and they only have 100 spots. So that's just something to be aware of, especially if you're, like I said, planning on joining like a content creators clan. You got to jump in real quick with that one. On top of that, there is a type of party called a war band. Now, a clan, 100 people, it's persistent. Once you're in it unless you leave it or get kicked out. With a war band, this is more of like an immediate friend circle kind of thing, where let's say you have a steady group of people that you always play with. For a good example here is I always play with my wife, so she'll be in my war band, right? Now, the warband is, I believe, up to 8 people, and this is like the group that you are going to be planning on playing with for the majority of your gameplay time. There's a couple of really cool things that they've added to warbands to make them a little bit more appealing or just, different than like just essentially being a small clan. The first is that they've added a new warband stash. The warband stash is like a shared stash between the warband members, like the 8 members that you play with. So, for example, if I get an item to drop that is really good and you're like, man, that's a great weapon, I would love that. Or maybe we're both playing monks and a weapon that I already have dropped, and so I put the other one, the one that just dropped, into the shared stash. You, as another monk, could take that shared weapon and use it. It's a little strange in the way this works, but it makes sense once I'll explain it. So essentially, instead of that now being your item, it's more like you're just borrowing that item through the shared stash. You can only take one item per person. So you're not going to be like loading up on a bunch of gear just immediately right off the bat and just be like a god among men because you just got all these items from your warband that they've collected. You can only take one per person, and the thing is with that, it is borrowed. So if you ever leave that warband or you ever get kicked out, that item immediately goes back into that shared stash. It's just kind of a way of allowing people who are playing consistently together to share loot around. And in this scenario, when you're in a warband with people of other classes, you're capable of getting loot for them as well, which is pretty cool. It creates a bit more of a dynamic social bond there, and that's something I'm totally okay with. Additionally, there's a thing called a Heliquary, which is like a raid. It's an 8-person raid. It's a really cool system. I'm not going to go into it in this particular video, but the Heliquary is something that you could do once you get to max level. You could do it weekly or bi-weekly, or not, twice weekly. What's the term for that? It's escaping my brain, but essentially you could do it on a weekly basis. And with a warband, your warband can get onto a leaderboard for completing the Heliquary, because it is an 8-person thing. It's an 8-person raid. So your Heliquary run may be super quick, and you might be able to get your warband on a leaderboard for that week. And I think that is really cool. It adds cool competition in a PvE sense between players. Now, let's say that you've jumped into the game, you've created your character, you've leveled up, you've played with your warband a little bit, and you've gotten to the final act of the game, which has now been shown off, which is the Realm of Damnation. Essentially, we're going to hell. It is a Diablo game. You should expect it by this point. The main antagonist of the game for the launch story is Skarn, the Lord of Damnation, and we're gonna go into the Realm of Damnation and fight him and do a bunch of stuff. In the zone itself are hell gates, and these are like a group-based content where you have to get a couple other people and go and close them, and when you do, you get rewarded for it, which is pretty cool. And then there's also a new dungeon called the Pit of Anguish, which is the first hell dungeon within the game. So they went a little ham with making it kind of deadly and cool and very hell-like, which again, it's a Diablo game, you expect it. But then you'll finish this final act. You'll be level 60. You'll be ready to start kind of doing your daily tasks, whether it be bounties or whatnot. And in the process, you're going to start gaining experience points still, because you're going to be gaining Paragon levels, which if you played Diablo 3, kind of forget everything that you used to know about Paragon levels and just get used to this new system, which I think is much improved. Essentially, there are a bunch of Paragon trees available for you to put points into, unlike in Diablo 3, where it was mostly just like different stats that you were buffing up. These are actually like skill trees, and they have, passive stat buffs in them, but for the most part, they are there for the really cool buffs. With the information they gave us, they actually showed off an entirely new tree called the Mastermind tree. They didn't show all of the skill points in it. However, on DiabloFans, we actually have a full skill builder, including the entire Mastermind tree, so you can actually go see what all of the things are. If you're interested in that, again, link is in the description to go to our build tool for DiabloFans. Also, caveat, I'm DiabloFans staff, so that, take whatever I say about that site as what you will. But the cool thing with the Mastermind tree is it's not like, before you had the Vanquisher, Survivor, Treasure Hunter, Gladiator, and Soldier tree. All of those are themed very much around what they say on the tin. But the Mastermind one is themed around group play in a cool way. So, for example, Coordinated Assault is a buff that gives all party members within 5 yards of you gain 3% increased damage, while your party members are from 4 different classes. So it's promoting diversity among the classes that you bring along for your party members. I think that's really cool. It means that if you're running a full group of monks, maybe the Mastermind tree not the best one for you to jump in on. But if you have like a group of 4 different classes or 3 different classes that you're playing with, then this tree might be worth it, especially because mutual defense gives all party members within 5 yards of you 3% additional damage reduction, which is cool. And again, like this is based on the different classes that you have. There's one that increases critical hit chance by 2.5% for each different class. That's real nice. There's a point for making that radius not 5 yards, but for 10 yards, which is awesome. And then finally, and this is probably one of the coolest things in the Paragon trees that I've seen, there's Find Weakness, which while your party has members from 4 different classes, your attacks have a 5% chance to make bosses vulnerable for 3 seconds. Damage taken by vulnerable targets is increased by 20%. That is insane. If you want to push Heliquaries with your warband, man, that is going to be great for at least one player to have. It also should be noted that they've added a reset button to your Paragon points, so you can completely reset your Paragon trees and reestablish your points as you see fit. However, it is a 7-day cooldown, so don't be expecting to do this like for every single activity that you've got going on. It's a 7-day cooldown, so just kind of keep that in mind before you reset your points and go, oh, I was only doing it for this PvP thing and I'm not going to be PvPing the rest of the week. But speaking of PvP, the Cycle of Strife has had a bunch of updates to it. There's some really cool stuff in here. Now, if you don't know what the Cycle of Strife is, it's the large, like, overarching PvP system within Diablo Immortal. It's really, really cool. It's a asymmetric like faction fight where you have a group of people called the Immortals and a group of people called the Shadows, and it ties in with the lore of the game really well. But essentially the Immortals are protecting Sanctuary, and then the Shadows are constantly testing the Immortals to see if they're up to the challenge, and if they're ever not, then the strongest of the Shadows become the Immortals. And there can only be a limited amount of Immortals at any given time, so it is like this really cool exclusive thing. But on average, you'll see the Immortals reign flip probably once every 2 to 3 weeks, hopefully. But if it goes any longer than that, then the Immortals are rocking it, but it probably shouldn't go any more than about 8 weeks of a single Immortals reign. So the Shadows are constantly going to be testing and fighting them back, which is awesome. Now at launch, when the game launches, the Immortals will not be players. It's going to be controlled by the AI just to kind of get the system started. Obviously, you're not going to have a bunch of players at max level to become Immortals to begin with. So, just expect for like the first 3 weeks for those Immortals to not be actual players. They're going to be AI. And then when the turnover happens and the strongest of the Shadows become Immortals, then the cycle will officially start. I'm not going to go into super detail on this particular system. There's a bunch of videos, including some from myself, that go into this detail significantly for this particular system. But like I said, I'm not going to do that here. What you need to know is a couple things, especially in regards to clans. So for Immortals, there's a very limited amount of people who can be an Immortal, but if you're in the Shadows, it's an unlimited amount of people who can be Shadows, which is cool and daunting at the same time if you want to become an Immortal, because you're like, the whole world is against me. However, if your clan decides that they want to become Shadows and enter into the system, you can convert your clan into a dark clan, which is essentially just a clan for a bunch of Shadows that are trying to work against the Immortals. When you do this, it requires signets, which are like, little marks that you can get, but you need one for each member in your clan. So if you have a clan of 100 people, you need 100 signets. Your clan members can just gather these. They are not like items that are going to be hanging out on like in somebody's inventory and they're like, what do I do with all these signets? It's going to be a shared pool that gets essentially put into a UI frame. And when you decide like now is the time to become a dark clan, if you have the required amount of signets, the clan leader just hits like the convert to dark clan and boom, it's done as long as you have enough signets. It's not going to be a case where someone has collected a signet and then they leave the clan and they take their signet with them. It's actually kind of the opposite. If they leave the clan, you're going to need one less signet, and the signets that you had remain. So it's just kind of a cool little system to make sure that you're not essentially creating a bunch of different clans to just join into the shadows. It's more for, you know, people who are purposely trying to do it. Now, of course, your clan could just remain as adventurers, which are like people who are not participating in the cycle of strife, which is cool. It's, you know, it's fine. It's whatever you want to do, really, as a clan. But if you do become a shadow, they've added a new thing that is super awesome, especially if you're a competitive player. Like if you feel like you want to be competitive or you just want to compete in some way. Essentially leading up to the turnover or the final fight where you fight the immortals and determine whether or not they're weak enough to be overthrown, there is a shadow war between all of the shadows, which is essentially a bracketed fight. Like there are entries you can enter yourself into the shadow war, and you and your dark clan essentially set up like times in which you will log on. It's all done through the UI. It's not complicated. It kind of walks you through it, but there are specific times that you will have to like log in to participate in these particular events. And then let's say you do really well and your group fights all the way through this bracket and you just keep like defeating group after group. And then eventually you get all the way through to the end where you are now going to be one of the groups participating in trying to overthrow the immortals. So I like this addition because it means that you are getting like the best of the best fighting the best of the best. And it's going to create these really tense fights when you go to overthrow the immortals, especially after, you know, several cycles of this, once you start getting the best players like rising to the top. And I'm really looking forward to that. And of course, participating in the Shadow War is going to get you rewards. So if you want to be rewarded for doing this stuff, this is a good way to do it. There's also a new Immortal activity, but we don't know what that is yet, and it is yet to be revealed. We just know that there's going to be something else that the Immortals can do once you get to that point. So let's say you want to farm a bunch of gear in your max level. There's something to know about set bonuses, especially if you only have played Diablo 3, where sets are like the main bread and butter of your gear. In Diablo Immortal, sets are all of your secondary slots, like your rings and whatnot. Well, previously, you could only get up to a 4-piece set. Well, now you can get up to a 6-piece set, but you need to know that the 6-piece set pieces, in order to get up to 6 pieces, will not start dropping until you reach Hell 4 difficulty or higher. So once you reach max level, and if you start going and, you know, getting your Paragon points and doing your dungeon runs and trying to farm out set pieces, just know that until you get high enough on your Paragon to actually reach Hell 4, then you're not going to be collecting those 6 pieces. You're going to only be getting 4. It's just like a little caveat of like, don't invest too much time there because it's going to be fruitless for you. And I've got 2 final things for you. So first off, with all of these different kinds of PvE content, you know, doing the open world stuff, the dungeons, the PvP, you're going to be wanting to switch around your builds fairly frequently. And thankfully, they have announced that the Armory is going to be a thing that you can use. If you've played Diablo 3, you understand what this is. Essentially, you could save builds and quick swap between them. It's really nice. It's really, really nice. In addition to that, there is just one thing that I wanted to mention, which is when it comes to clans, there is a platinum cost on creating a clan, which is a premium currency. Now, before you get your knickers in a bunch, just know that by standard play, you are going to earn enough platinum to unlock a clan, so to make your own clan just by playing the game. So the reason this is here is to prevent any kind of like weird exploitation with making like a bunch of clans again and then trying to put them into dark clans. And it's just all of these weird things like the warband stash or the platinum cost on the clan is just to prevent weird niche cases of abuse within the game. So just like I said, before you get all up in arms about the fact that you're going to have to pay a premium currency in order to start a clan, just know that you're going to get enough of that currency just by playing the game and you'll be good to go. with that out of the way, I'm really excited for the launch of Diablo Immortal. We're like, it's 9 or 8 days away from the launch. Oh my goodness, we're so close. It is really, really exciting. I'm personally going to be playing a monk. I'm really curious what you guys are planning to play. Let me know in the comments what you plan on playing at launch, and of course what you think of all of these different things that they've put out there before launch. In addition to that, if you're interested in watching more of this stuff, like the guides and whatnot that I'll put up right before launch and that shortly there afterwards, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel to get the latest and greatest videos from me. I upload daily, and I have done so for 10 years, and I haven't missed a single day. It's been a journey. On top of all that, if you want to support the channel, you can become a channel member by hitting the join button. You get a bunch of cool emojis and exclusive content, or you can head to patreon.com/OSWguild and become a patron there. If you are interested at all in playing a bunch of Diablo Immortal, I'm going to have a bunch of content for you. So look forward to that. With all that being said, thank you very much for watching, and we shall see you all next time.